story of my son, what brought me to Christ. Well, I waited tables and was in the restaurant industry. It's about 17 years ago. I'm working 2-3 jobs, trying to make ends meet. And I met this girl, Leah, and me and her, we had a house. We'd been together for a while. We'd probably been together 7 or 8 years married. I think 7 years married before he came along, almost together 10 years. Caleb was born. We were at the hospital. He got perfect, rates. They rate your children from a 0 to 10 and color, breathing. I don't know what all the tests are, but they rate them. Well, he scored all the highest marks. Proud dad moment. You're just like super happy. He's got all these marks. And then one of my wife's best friends, Kim, had come over there that night to see my son. She was 30 at the time. Unfortunately, she has since passed away, and that was hard in itself. But she was there. She wanted to see Caleb. Well, it was late that evening, and when she was holding him, my son started turning blue and started turning purple, and he would quit breathing. And my wife wanted to pray. And I'm panicking, man. I'm a panicker. That's what I do when there's like something's wrong with a family member or kid. She's logic driven, keep it together. And my wife was hemorrhaging when she had the baby, so she's got all these issues. My son's got these issues, and I don't deal well with that type of pressure. And my wife wanted to pray, and I didn't know who to pray to. And I've always thought maybe there's a God, but if you're our God, then why did you let this happen? Why did you do this? Always questioning him, never having a relationship. Like if he was real, he wouldn't have done this to me. He wouldn't have done that. Never really knowing him. My experience with him was as waiting on tables, the Christians would come in and I would wait on them and they'd be friendly and want to pray with me and leave a Bible tract, run up a $50 to $100 bill and leave me $1 to $5. So I was very judgmental. I was like, oh Lord, they done gave 10% to the Lord. They don't have nothing for me. So I go out of my way not to do that when I'm out there. But what had led me to him was what had happened to my son that night. He just kept going into respiratory failure. He had elongated heartbeat. They had him on monitors. Up to that point, I had to be physically touched to be woken up. You're talking about a man that's 29, 30 years old, still needed to be physically touched to wake up, to go to work, to function, to do anything. God used that as a turning point in my life. I was so scared of any alarm that would go off. I'd come running out of bed to check on my kid. Well, my wife had a relationship with Christ, and she had walked away from her faith for about 10 years. And the Lord just kept telling her, like, you need to come back to me. I'll deal with Kevin. I'll deal with Kevin. She kept going to this little church. No, it wasn't little, but Liberty Church. And I was wondering, what's she doing there? So I went there. I go there out of curiosity. But I did not want that for my life. I'm like, how do these people have time to go? As busy as I am working 2 full-time jobs and a part-time job, how in the world am I going to go to church on Sunday? How am I going to go Wednesday? And I thought all they wanted was my money, and how deceived was I? So my wife said she wanted to start going. So I would go there and kind of follow her. Well, that one day they had a meet with the pastor, and I wanted to know what's going on. Why is my wife going here? What am I going to do? So I waited. I didn't want to talk when everybody else was around, and there was a line of people waiting. I probably waited an hour and a half, maybe even a little bit longer to talk to him because I wanted to just talk to him. And he encouraged me he didn't shove him down my throat. He didn't try to get me an emotional reaction to run to Jesus and just give him a jailhouse religion. Oh, I'm saved. Very gracious. He said, what I would ask? He's asked me some probing questions. Who is Leah Taylor in your life? What does she mean to you? Do you love her? Is she the most important thing in your life? And, he's kind of set me up, if you will. And he said, well, if you love her so much, don't do this for me. Just make a commitment. Come to church once a week for 6 months and go to small group every other week. And if you get nothing out of it in 6 months, well, you ain't doing it for me, you're doing it for the woman that you loved. And I just kept going in there, and I'd never been in an environment where people just loved on you, you know. I was not the kid that was ever really picked for anything, so everything to me, I'm in any setting, and I go on men's retreat to this day still, I'll get kind of, it takes a little bit to kind of draw me out, just because of woundings as a kid, not being picked for this, not being picked for that, oh, you can't, okay, you don't want to be around this guy, so felt very unlovable, if you will. And for some reason, every time I would go to that church, man, they would just keep loving on me and loving on me. We went into a small group, and I'd never been in that type of setting, so they go around doing prayer and praise, and they're like, well, is there anything that we can pray for you about? And I said, yeah, if Jesus is real, I would like him to, I'd like him to reveal himself to me while I'm doing this. And he revealed himself to me in so many ways, man. I mean, I just kept going to the church for 6 months, and then they had this Easter play. As silly as it seems, on the stage they had a place where the devil could come out, you know, to show what would happen. And they just did a representation of a family, normal events. Dad's not saved, always trying to get dad to go to church, like me. Wife drags the kids to church, dad doesn't want to go. Dad gets killed in a car accident in the play, and the devil pops out of the floor, and he takes the dad, and the dad goes to hell forever. And it just really I just kept pondering and pondering and pondering in my mind. And for 6 weeks, man, I was ready to give my life to Christ, waiting for an altar call, waiting for an altar call. There was no altar call. And then the next weekend I go to church on Sunday, and Apostle Wilson was there from Uganda giving a message, man, and it just smacked me right in the head. And I was like, I can't leave this building without giving my life to Christ. I'm ready to give my life to Christ. And you know what you are committing to, because once you possess and know the knowledge, there's no turning back. And I knew that, you know, it's kind of like the Matrix, take the blue pill or the red pill. And it is true. Once you know the truth, you know, and it's just, there's no turning back. So at that point I was all in, pot committed, and I gave my life to Christ that day. And that was 17 years ago. And then 2 months later, the Lord sent me to Trace Diaz, and God just radically started changing my heart and changing my mind. He put me around a group of men, which was always a struggle for me. Always feeling like the misfit, the underdog, never fitting in, and never being picked to, I get picked for, he picks me for everything. He lets me, as an adult, do things I never got to do as a kid. I used to say, man, Lord, why can't I be like my brother and sister? Why am I not popular? Why am I not good looking? Why am I not that? Because I got plans for you. I would not trade my life that I have today, ever, to replace the hurt and the pain that I went through as a kid. That hurt and that pain, God used that for me now, as I know what it feels like. And he's called me to love and serve his kids. And that's what I do. That's my ministry. Cars, the company he started, not KT, that's my ministry. That's my mission field. People, humans, loving on them, going out of your way. You know, it's like, when's the last time a random act of kindness, you know, when you think about it, happened, you know? And if we could be world changers as Christian, if each Christian just once a day just did some random act of kindness to somebody, imagine how that could go back and impact the world. So it's kind of me in a nutshell, really, with my salvation, getting saved. God used my son. He used a tragic event to draw me close to him, and to realize, like, I need something or somebody to call on. And my wife, she does a lot, but she can't fulfill that hole that's there, but God could. He filled it up. Now my son, I mean, he's just turned 18. I just actually picked him up from Vida Nueva last night, and to watch him up there and hear his testimony, his 2 minutes, well, he's my son, so it wasn't 2 minutes, it was probably 7 minutes up there, but just sharing his heart and just knowing that God basically took me and my wife, two imperfect vessels that are still two imperfect vessels, give us the knowledge of Christ through Caleb. And now Caleb's on fire for the Lord. He loves the Lord. He's not swayed. He lets his friends know, no matter what they are, what their verbiage, what they're, hey man, let's keep it PG-13 around me. He really is. He's a good kid. He's 18. He loves the Lord. He's been brought up in the truth, and it's just amazing how God can impact a family's life. Like he totally changed the direction of my family tree. You know, he took me and my wife out of the miry muck, and he set our feet on solid ground. And neither one of us have ever looked back since. And then I look at my children and how they're turning out, and spare the rod and spoil the child. I'm not, because of my background, I'm not one I don't like to use my hands unless I'm hugging you. I don't like to spank my kids, and I think there's a time and a place for it. But my girls, if I'm upset or disappointed when my tone, I'm a big dude, and my tone changes, something changes in them, and I don't want them to fear me. I want them to have the same feeling I have with God. I don't want to disappoint him. They don't need to scare them with fear. I would rather them not want to disappoint me. And just when I fuss at them or something for doing something wrong, they don't want me to be disappointed. I think that's how the relationship that I have with my Father in heaven. Like I want to make him proud. I want to make him happy. I can fall into flesh or sin habits just like anybody else, and you know, you get real victorious and you're on this path, and it seems like the longer you're on the path and the harder you're striving for excellence, the more the enemy's knocking on your door. And he knocks on our door because he knows the power that I have. He knows the power that you have. He knows that you can set the captives free, and he's going to stop at nothing to do that. You, my friend, are a powerhouse, and God's using you right now in ways that you don't even know. He used you in ways in my life already that I question it all the time. My mind races, and they're all good things, good thoughts, but why in this moment, why in this time did you place Jeff in my life? He's got a purpose. He's intentional. God is an intentional God. He doesn't do anything just to do it. There's always a reason, and often we don't know why. So I don't know. This morning I'm questioning, like, what's your intentions, God? What is the lesson that you want me to learn? What's the lesson you want Jeff to learn? Because the reality is, if we don't learn the lessons, he's going to continue to send the trial over and over and over and over until we quit being a gnat. And it's like, what is the lesson you want? So life, when I get up, you know, my questions I ask myself, and I learned that at Diaz. Where do I use my time? Where do I use my talents? Where do I use my treasures, and what's the main focus of my thoughts? I can tell you a lot about how your day's going to go, and if it's the I show or the me show, it's probably not going to go so well. But when the Lord wakes you up and you have it on your heart to serve others and to love on others, he can work with that, because when you're others focused and you're not focused, it gives you drive, it gives you motivation, and it gives you a purpose. And if nobody out there depends on us, we don't have children, we don't have brothers and sisters, somebody needs to depend on us. We depend on God. You need somebody to depend on that depends on you. And you got 3 beautiful kids. It's one of your driving forces. God uses those children to proxy and position you, to keep you motivated, to keep you driving. Same thing with me. When everything looks doom and gloom, you can't give up. You can't give up. If it was just me and God, maybe I would give up. But he says, you know what? No, I'm not going to let you give up. I'm going to give you 5 kids, Kevin. Jeff, I'm going to give you 3 kids. You can't give up, because it's a battle worth fighting for. That's your ministry, and that's so strong. But ultimately, when I made my weekend, when I become rector, God gave me, he was sharing this with me last night. And I thought that the verse was for the candidates, and the theme was for the candidates: take captive every thought, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is admirable. You know what it talks about. I'm on camera, so I'm you know, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is admirable. I forget how. If anything is praiseworthy, think of put these things that you have learned from me into practice, and you will receive the peace of God. Well, I thought, man, that's a great scripture for them. No, it was for me. And I thought I'm helping others, but he sent that. I think the message I can hear, I was thinking about that last night, a battle worth fighting for. He loves you so much. He gave you this verse. But the verse really is for you, because you are a battle worth fighting for. He loves you that much, but he's given you the love that he has for you, for other people, to rescue them and to let them know that they're a battle worth fighting for. And the more that you replay that tape over and over that he gave you in your head, he's letting you know that you are a battle worth fighting for. He'll leave the 99, he'll leave 999 billion people just to go rescue you out of the miry mud. Take captive every thought. He knows our struggle. He knows sometimes maybe you wrestle with worth or who are you, and he gives you this verse because he's going to drive that nail into that board, into your heart, to let you know like you are. Same thing with me. Take captive every thought. Because the mind, this brain here, it'll take me places I don't need to go, and he knows that. He says, take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. And when we do take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ, then it takes off the stronghold of the enemy. The enemy just wants, so whatever is admirable, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is praiseworthy, think on these things, because our mind we'll just keep playing the same thing over and over. But if we start quoting scripture or the word, or start taking captive thought, he says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's the renewing of your mind. You ever think about like the way the world sets things up, how we'll focus on the negative? Something good happens, people don't go out and, man, I met this dude Jeff, and he and we do, brothers and sisters in the Lord, but often the heathen, man, they want to focus on the negative, the negative, the negative, the negative, the negative. And I think God wants us to illuminate the positive, the positive, the positive. I was doing my writing, my journaling, and he showed me the world will lie to us. They'll sell us this package of everything is going horrible, when this one thing is going horrible. 999 million other things are beautiful around us. I mean, we can breathe, we're healthy, we have food, but we don't think on that. All we think about is that one thing that we don't have that we want. And I think he uses that to take the I off of it. And there's always one thing that, I'm focusing on if it's that negative, and it's like trying to renew that thought, trying to change that thought. I think God uses pain, trials, tribulations, like he says, consider it joy when we go through trials and tribulations, because that testing of our faith produces perseverance, and we just want to keep fighting more and more and more. And it's like I've been battling lately, like growing weary, and he keeps giving me scripture. Do not grow weary in doing good. Don't grow weary in doing good. Like me and you we're in a battlefield. We're out here in the ministry, and we're doing what we feel like God's called us to do. You're out here giving up your morning. I mean, who gets up at 4:40? Like, what is this dude getting up this early for me? Like, it's early. And then we had the time change, so it's even earlier. I'm like, this guy's going to come out at 4:47. Why, Jeff? Probably not going to answer me, but that's okay. I know why. Because of your heart. And that comes from God. He has made spiritual deposits in you, spiritual deposits in your heart. And we don't know why we do what we do, but he says, don't grow weary in doing good. Because these people are worth fighting for. And that's what we're here. If it's the me show, before I got saved, it was I did this, I did that, I did this. I was a perfumer, and I thought I was something. I had no education, and, I learned how to do this, and he stripped me of everything. Put me out in the parking lot painting cars, and should have never embarrassed me, but it did. I'm proud of what I do now, but back then, man, I thought I'd arrived. I didn't get an education, and, man, I go back to my hometown, and now I finally, I was nothing, and now I'm finally something. No, I'm not. I'm still nothing, but I'm a son of the Most High God, who he is well pleased with me, and he's well pleased with you. And has been a turning point and a change for me. Like when I go into my dark places and I get inside my head, that I know without a shadow of a doubt that there is a God that loves me far more than I'll ever love myself. When I'm stripping and breaking and tearing myself down, when nobody else is around, for me, I care less about the camera, you, my pastor, what anybody else thinks. I care about the relationship that I have with Christ. When no one's around, when he pricks my heart, when he gets me tender, when I think about what he's done in my life, and the enemy gets in my head and says, you don't have a relationship with him. No, you don't have a relationship with him, sir. I do. I am a son of the Most High God. And when no one else is around, I know whose I am. I don't need a show. I don't need an audience. My tears are here whether someone else is around or not, because I know what he has done for me. And he has set me free. He has set me every day. No, it's a battle. I battle it every day, and I can get into my head, but I'm not the man I was 17 years ago. I'm 100% different. Still a work in progress, lots of issues. I think that's going to be a lifelong battle. And I think if everything went 100% peachy in my life, and if everything went 100% peachy in your life, will we continue to gaze to the Father? Will we look to him? It's often when everything is going great, man, we're a hot mess. And he has to use the tearing of something down or allowing something to break. And then it's like, oh yeah, God, I'm so sorry. What do you want? Well, and now, for 17 years, man, I've been saved. But not until about a year ago did I ever do a Bible study. Did I ever get into the Word? Sure, I did studies, but not really reading. I just listened to something, get my message from a pastor. But now he wakes me up every morning hungry, and I want to get into the Word, spend a little bit of time with him, and it brings me into a nice place of peace. And if I don't start my day off in the Word, there's a huge difference.